What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nathan, and on this planet we send it. And what we're going to be getting in today, well, we're going to be installing onboard air in my 2018 JKU Rubicon Ragnarok 2.0. So the plan for this video is I'm going to briefly go over the products that I'm going to be installing for onboard air, and then we'll get right on into the installation. Then after the installation, I'll go ahead and chapter each one of these parts, each one of these sections, so you can kind of follow through or skip through as you choose. And then at the very end, when we get to the outro, I'll go ahead and discuss some of the things that I liked about the installation and things that I didn't like about the installation. All right, I got a plan in place. Risks are acceptable. Let's go ahead and send it. All right, so before we get started, I do want to just, for those that saw the sPOD installation and you saw I tied into that ground over there, I actually ended up moving the ground back to where I wanted originally to put it over here so that I can keep all the wires bundled up over here. I'm getting ready to, as we install this air compressor, put even additional cables back there. So I may go ahead and see if I might be able to clean that up a bit. We'll see. But I at least wanted to clean up what I could and sort of take an early win. All right, so as far as the parts we're going to be using for this installation, we have the Grimm Offroad bracket. This comes with the 2 bracket pieces and some additional hardware for installation. Just randomly, I have some additional zip ties and everything to clean up the installation once we get to that part. But I have the air compressor. I went with the twin onboard air compressor from ARB. I've had great luck with this in the past. I've enjoyed it so far. I haven't had any problems. And so that's why I went with it again. Now, it's different from some of my other installations. Although I don't have and I don't plan to use air lockers, I went ahead and got this air manifold just so I could run the air chuck from right there by the compressor on the mount. That's why I chose to go with the ARB locker manifold kit, not for the lockers, but for just so I can put the chuck in an easily located area. Now, I do have some medium strength Loctite crimping tools and some Teflon tape, but all that I would say is normal, part of a normal toolbox. But what wasn't a part of my toolbox, and I had to order separate, was the 17/32 drill bit. I didn't have that in any of my other kits, so I had to buy that separate. So if you choose to go with Grimm Offroad, just be mindful you are going to have to order that separately. I ordered mine from Amazon and it came in overnight. All right, so before I started the main part of this recording, I did go ahead and do some quick shots of me drilling out this hole to 17/32 and then go ahead and put in a little paint there, white paint on there, just to do a little bit of rust prevention. Now that I have this set up, now we need to move on and go ahead and remove this 10mm bolt right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. The next step is actually to go ahead and install the rivet bolt here, but before I do that, since I have paint drying still, I'm going to go ahead and do that last before I put the bracket on. So first, I'm going to start with removing the horn, and then after I remove the horn, I'm going to go ahead and loosen up that bolt here on the master cylinder so that I can fit 1/4 gap in between. This is a 10mm. All right, hopefully you're able to see. I didn't have to go all the way off. I'm just moving it back about 1/4 inch so that I can go ahead and fit this bracket back there. So let's test it out. And it fits in there. So hopefully you're at least able to see that now. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and install the rivet nut, because that is the next step. So I've let the paint dry as long as I can without stopping the installation for a little bit. So let's go ahead and get this in position. So the instructions call for you to take this M8 40mm bolt, and then you go ahead and you install the flat washer. Where's the flat washer? Believe it's this one right here. In the picture, it actually shows to be a silver one, but this is this color, so we'll go ahead and use this for now. And then to go ahead and put this bolt on. Oop. All right, well, we got a problem here, because from my understanding, this should be able to tighten down on this bolt, and that's going to allow me to set this rivet nut. But since it doesn't, so it was supposed to go on like this. This bolt I thought was supposed to grip onto here, and then we screw this down, and then basically by tightening these two down, it was going to expand this rivet nut into place, but it's not doing that. But thank goodness I have a rivet nut gun, and we're going to go ahead and use that instead. All right, now that we got the gusset on there onto the brake master cylinder, it's now time to go ahead and fit this on there. Get this upside down. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on. This is actually gonna be a little too hard for me to get a good shot for you guys to see exactly where, you basically see me doing the action shots of putting this on when I'm connecting the gusset. But basically the overall process is, the goal is to get this tightened down as much as all the way down where the gusset meets the bracket to the fender. And I do wanna highlight, how it's gonna go on. It's gonna go, this is going on the top, and on the bottom we're gonna have this washer and this nut, so that this nut doesn't go through the groove where the gusset is connecting to the fender bracket. And then right here, what we're gonna be doing is the rivet nut that I just put on, we're gonna be just putting this down just momentarily. Don't have to put this on too much, you're just kind of putting this into gentle place, and then with the OEM bolt right here, we're just gonna again screw this down, not tightening it, but just screwing it down. And on the star washer here, just make sure that the star of the bite is going down, not up. And so now that I got this on, I'm gonna go ahead and connect this. I'll do this off camera. I'm gonna connect this down. I'm gonna basically put this on there loosely, and then I'm gonna tighten down the bolt on the master cylinder all the way down, get that into place, and then I'm gonna tighten this down so that it's in its final position, so that both brackets are now mated together. And then after that, I'm gonna take off the bolts here, loosen that one up, and then take the whole assembly out, and then we'll go over to the workbench and start assembling, putting on the air compressor itself. All right, I got everything down into place. I kind of eyeballed, since I didn't tighten this down 100% all the way, I kind of eyeballed where I want it to be as far as fitting within the groove. There's a natural groove right here. And so after doing that, I tightened it down as desired, where the bolt meets where the two brackets meet with the nut, the washer, and the bolt. And now I'm just kind of taking this off, and I've already loosened up the master cylinder bolt because they wanted you to tighten that down prior to setting the bolt in the middle that connects the two brackets. So hopefully this will come up now. Looks like we're in good shape. A little bit of finagling. Might need to loosen it a bit more. Oh no, it came off. There we go. Now we're gonna go ahead and install the compressor on and all the components, and then we'll just go ahead and drop it back in. And then after that, it's just a matter of wiring it all together. We should be able to test it. All right, so I went ahead and oriented everything as it is in the picture and the instructions, with the gusset that goes to the master cylinder away from you. The sides that you'll be installing the filters are towards you, and the wiring is against you. So what we're going to be doing is using these 4 bolts right here to go ahead and mount the compressor to here, and then afterwards the horn is going to mount to right there. And since I'm using the airlock or manifold, it's going to be installing over here. So this is where we're going to go ahead and use the medium or the blue Loctite, and we're going to go ahead and just tighten these down and get them on, and then I'm going to move over here to the air manifold. All right, now that we got the air compressor on, I'm gonna go ahead and install the air manifold, and I'm doing it with this on towards the outside, furthest away from the master cylinder, which I can tell where it is based on where the bracket is here. So I'm just getting these sort of lightly fitted on here real fast before I tighten these down. Actually, these are gonna need some washers. All right, thank goodness I did have a washer I could use that's able to hold it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on, and we'll go ahead and move to installing the horn, and then after that we'll go ahead and put the unit inside the Jeep. Last, we're putting on the horn here, and I'm making sure that these connectors are facing towards the rear of the vehicle, because that's the way that I disconnected them from. So just tighten this down a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and move and put this right on into the Jeep. Hopefully it goes in smooth. All right, so one thing that I forgot to do, in addition to removing the car horn, you got to remove the car horn mount. I was going ahead and putting this in, and yep, something was getting in the way, and then when I took a look, I realized I had missed a step, so don't forget to remove the car horn mount. So it's about a week later, and I ended up having to purchase a new tool because I didn't have the right tool for the job. It was just becoming a little too tight for me to go ahead and tighten down that 13mm bolt on the master cylinder. So I went ahead and I picked up these ratcheting wrenches and was able to complete the job. Another thing that I do want to pay attention to, and it does call it out in the instructions, you need to make sure that the compressor is moved all the way forward as possible so that it doesn't interfere with the with filling up the cap for the brake fluid and everything. But it is a little tight. You will be able to remove it off, but it will be a little, sort of moving the compressor out of the way in order to do it, but not too bad. For the next part, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at, which will not apply to you guys, so I'm going to do this offline. I want to see if I can tighten up the wire from the previous owner, see if I might be able to reduce some of this wiring that's up here at the front before we continue to wiring and getting the air hoses ran and everything. All right, so the next step is I need to go ahead and wire the cable here going to the compressor. And I'm now following the directions from the ARB, not from the Grimm mounting bracket at the moment. And it says to go ahead and wire both of these, the positive and the negative, directly to the battery. So I'm going ahead and setting up for that. And then the other thing that it says to do is it's possible to go ahead and set these two black wires and go ahead and crimp them together when we do it. So I'm going to see if I can make that happen. All right, so off camera I went ahead and I plugged in the horn, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of eyeballing how I want the cable to go ahead and lay here. Pretty happy that I decided to go ahead and remove the excess cable from my light bar. Got a lot more space to operate, and it's making it look at least a little bit cleaner, even though I am routing about 4 different cables from one side to the other. But after I go ahead and get this done, and I'll do it off camera because there's nothing much to just, zipping some ties down and cutting off the ends. Once I get done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and we'll come back and we'll go ahead and plumb up the compressor and get it ready, just a couple steps away before we can go ahead and do a quick test to see if this is all working. All right, so one of the first things I want to go ahead and do, and let me show you real fast what I'm talking about. So what I'm concerned about is where the level of the compressor top is compared to where the top of the hood is going to lay directly on top of that. I don't have much space to go ahead and play with, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and adjust this and move this part in here and tilt it all the way to the 45. And in order to do that, we got to go ahead and remove these 10mm bolts here, and then on the reciprocal side over there. That air solenoid is in the way, but it isn't blocking it completely. And again, with just a small 10mm wrench, it's easy to get on in there. All right, I went ahead and disconnect the wires because the next thing I should be able to do is just lift this up and then kind of tilt it out. It goes in there kind of tight, so let's see how easy this is or isn't. Let me get a screwdriver or something real fast. I think the lid to the brake fluid is in the way, so let me remove that real fast. I think if I were going to do this again, I definitely would be doing this step at first. So if you are like me, I would, if you're doing the same bracket and everything, I would go ahead and make this adjustment prior to putting it in. It looks like I'm getting it now. All right, so it should be able to, and there we go. So, all right, so it's another 10mm bolt I just need to loosen up real fast. Once that's loosened, I should be able to tilt it. Yep, it's tilted. All right, now that I got that pointed at about 45 degrees out, I'm gonna go ahead and loosely put the top back on, and we'll see if I'm pointed within the correct direction. All right, I got everything in place, and while I'm plugging this up here, I did want to let you guys know that I highly recommend adjusting this outside of the vehicle. I mean, it is possible to do, but it was a pain. It took me about 20 minutes or so trying to get everything aligned. Once I got perfectly aligned, you know, everything went in, definitely no cross threading. And the part that was giving me a struggle why I wasn't able to line it was because I kept putting this part here where it's supposed to be into this groove. I wasn't getting it in there. So you can see when you got it in the right place, it should be right into that groove, and then it will line up pretty easily. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the parts that I'm going to use. This came with the Grimm bracket, so I'm going to go ahead and use this off of the air compressor. I'm going to go ahead and connect it like so, and then going straight in and out of the air solenoid, I'm going to connect this like that. And since this has a rubber gasket here at the end, I don't need to put any sort of Teflon tape on that, but I am going to go ahead and put Teflon tape on those and go ahead and get ready to start connecting it all up. I don't know if you noticed that this is moving a little bit now. I actually had to get back in there and loosen it up. I decided just to keep it loose instead of trying to figure out what the sweet spot was so that I could basically play with it. We'll see if there's any impact. I don't anticipate it, but basically as I was turning it before, it was starting to get stopped by this the heat guard, so that was getting in the way. Now that I got it all lined up, I should be able to get on just right here with just enough space. So it's looking good, but we'll see once we go ahead and tighten it down and get it in there. And in case you're wondering, I was tightening down up here. I was using a 14 millimeter. This is going to be a 16 millimeter once I get to that point. Now I'm using a Flexzilla air chuck for it. It's known to be high flow, but we'll see. I have this on my Gladiator, so I'm just using the same one, and it should fit in here pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it down. But whatever air chuck you use, this is where you go ahead and put it in. So, but after this, I should be able to just go ahead and put the hose together, and because I picked up a Flexzilla hose. And I'm going to go ahead and use that and put this air chuck that I got onto there, and that should be good enough. Doesn't need to be too crazy. And now we should be able to just go ahead and wire up. I'll get the hose ready, and yeah, I guess those are really the last two steps. Now, if you already have your pre-assembled hose, this is irrelevant to you, but I figured in case those of you who want to see what I ended up getting, I do have a Flexzilla hose from Amazon. Went ahead and put the connector on, and now I'm using this lock inflate, and I've had good use on this with the Mojave. It has the teeth that reach out and grab and pull it in. So supposedly it won't let loose, because I was having problems with my original one when I first got my Ragnarok, my LJ, and then when I got this, I didn't have any problems since. So I've had pretty good luck with them. This isn't a sponsorship. They are not. I bought this with my own money, and so you know, if you want to try it out, you know, I definitely recommend it. It's worked out pretty good for me so far. So for the last step, I'm going to be going ahead and connecting to my sPOD. If you're not doing this, and I apologize that I'm only going to be showing this part of it, but if you do have the sPOD, this is going to be easier. So I went ahead and I made just a little bit of adapter here to go ahead and connect to the sPOD, and I didn't want to go ahead and cut this purple wire, so made a little thing here so that it will plug in, and then once I plug it in, I'll go ahead and put a little Tessa tape around it just so that it is protected a little bit more, and around this area. I'm not sure if I'll ever be using air lockers in the future, but I didn't want to go ahead and cut any of this just in case. So I'll protect it with the Tessa tape. So we'll go ahead and just, I think I'm going to go ahead and connect this to number 6, and we'll go ahead and do that right now. Yeah. So the last thing after I finish putting this filter on, I should be able to just go flip the switch, and we should hear this get to 150 psi, then automatically shut off if there's no air leaks. So let's go ahead and test that now. Well, that was fast. Listening for air leaks. At least if there are some, it's not that bad. So I'm going to go ahead. My tires are a little bit low due to the colder temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and pump them up for the first time using its own onboard air compressor. So I think the next upgrade I'm probably going to do in here, which would be just a quick second, is to upgrade the interior lights. All right, so obviously just doing a quick test, I didn't necessarily need to go ahead and start the car, but now I'm actually gonna be running the air compressor. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. So right now we are at 33 PSI, so let's go ahead and test it out. This is also a test. I don't know how, this is a test to see how fast this is actually gonna register. Let me close the door. My Gladiator, the TPMs, they register pretty, the tire pressure management system, they register pretty fast, but I don't know how fast this is going to be. Let's try. All right, I turned it off for a second because it seems like it's going a little slow. Let's keep going. Alright, so unfortunately the tire pressure management update system isn't as fast as my Gladiator, so I'm at 38. So I'm probably going to have to get an alternate tire pressure gauge just to make sure that I'm not overdoing it. All right, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Now, I will say, overall thoughts about the installation, at least, for the air compressor itself, although it was just a quick test, pumping up my tires, working as a champ. That's why I chose to go with ARB with the dual compressor. Now, for the Grimm Offroad, I got to be honest, I wasn't too happy with this installation in contrast to my Gladiator's installation. I thought the Gladiator was flawless. Everything, the instructions and all the parts that came with it were perfect. On this one, it seemed like they were giving me either the wrong parts or they were missing some washers that I thought should have been installed with the bracket for installing this, and they didn't have it, so I was a little let down on that. Although the saving grace was the instructions from Grimm Offroad are always top-notch. They had some of the wiring in there that the ARB compressor instructions didn't have that I thought made it a lot easier. They just got right to the point, at least for connecting the sPOD, so I really did appreciate that and how they articulated that. But overall, I am happy with the installation. It was challenging putting the air compressor on once it was on the bracket, but after that, everything else was pretty straightforward. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.